Welcome, Miss Meena Iyer, to the Mind My Mind talk show once again. Dear viewers, welcome to all of you. Today we have Miss Meena Iyer with us again, who's a counseling psychologist and a de-addiction expert. And she has been practicing this for the last many years, since 2012. Today, let us focus on alcohol addiction. There are many types of addictions, of course, but today let's focus on one of the most prevalent issues that one is facing, that is on alcohol. So, Meena, we know that there are many types of substance addictions. What is an addiction in the first place? Can we just, before we jump to alcohol, help us just understand the basic of what is an addiction? When, what is the level where we say, okay, we are an addict, I am an addict, or somebody's become an addict, and then move into alcohol?
Absolutely, Gurit. Thank you for having me here. And that's the perfect place to start. So, what really is addiction? So, if you look at the medical definition of addiction, it says that when a person compulsively uses a substance or indulges in a behavior despite harmful consequences, that constitutes an addiction. So, for example, if a person is going through health issues, both physical health and mental health, and still they continue taking whichever substance it is, whether it's a substance like alcohol or any narcotic drugs or even prescription medication, despite the problems that they're having, and they cannot stop, that's what we call an addiction.
Wow. So there are, of course, and in addition to all of the substance abuse, I think there are addictions on technology these days and addictive behaviors these days. But for today, let's focus on alcohol, like I said. So, is alcohol really bad all the time, or only when we get addicted to it?
So you see, alcohol has been around for years, for I don't know, maybe centuries. Okay. So we hear about, even in ancient cultures, there is talk of wine and, grapes being crushed to create this nectar, which everybody drinks and enjoys. So how come it's become harmful? Okay. And so everybody, and as I mentioned, I've worked with alcoholics of all ages, and almost without exception, everybody starts consuming alcohol as a social activity. It's something that you have at a party, or like when friends get together to let their hair down after an exam. And those are the starting phases. So, and if you look at the chemical composition of alcohol, what it really does to the brain is that it lowers inhibition, which is why you'll hear people saying, I feel relaxed after alcohol. I can talk my heart out after alcohol. But what it's actually doing is to bring down, that very tightly wound up, inhibited sort of feeling. The problem starts when, of course, the frequency of consumption, the quantity of consumption both increase and increase. Because, like any other substance, the body becomes tolerant to alcohol. What does that mean? Simply that if a person could get comfortably, relaxed with one drink, he will need two drinks and three and four. Progressively, what we say in layman's terms, my capacity has increased. It's actually my body needs more alcohol to hit that same level that I hit with less alcohol. So that is one side of it. And the other side is, therefore, if I have any pressing life issues, it could be issues at work, it could be issues, in the home with family members, it could be even a diagnosed mental disorder like, anxiety disorder. Then there comes a point when the intake of alcohol helps me to cope with that. And that happens so subtly that I don't even come to know that now I am compulsively reaching for the alcohol to make me feel good. And then that's an endless cycle, as we're all aware.
What does it have any, what are the physiological effects that it is having on our brains, on our body? Of course, we've heard enough about liver cirrhosis, etc. But what does it essentially do to the brain, that the brain stops comprehending that you got to stop now?
So, the brain, like any other organ of the body, it gets used to so much alcohol being consumed. And in its extremes, of course, the connection between neurons, memory, what is called the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, the strategizing brain, the brain that can exercise judgment, take a call, that gets impacted with excessive alcohol use.
Okay. So we have seen enough families get devastated, uh, and there are very few people who actually manage reaching out to for a rehab. One hears about rehab centers, but there's very few people who actually end up going there. When a family member, hits that stage, how does one a reach out to a rehab, or and b, what does a rehab program really comprise of?
Okay. So first, if we look at, I think since many families are watching us today, what does a rehab program comprise of? So if a person has hit a place where they cannot do without alcohol, consumption could vary. It could be that, if it is, I have worked with a lot of functional alcoholics, which means people who go to work, come back, they go to their child's parent teacher meeting, and so they are in that sense of the word functional. They could even be going to a gym thrice a week, correct?
Okay.
But from time to time, there are episodes where they go completely out of control. And these episodes could be either socially embarrassing, or they could be dangerous things like drinking and driving. Okay. So, a rehab program therefore begins with first bringing abstinence into the person's life. So by admitting somebody to a rehab, the first thing that is getting achieved is that the person is taken away from the substance, firstly. Secondly, the impact of the substance being taken away creates certain physiological withdrawal symptoms. Those symptoms are managed with medications administered by, prescribed by, whoever the psychiatrist in the center is or works with the center.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the person is away from the alcohol, is when they're going to become aware of what are the real problems in their life, what are their behavioral issues, why have they, dropped to this level of living, really, because every area of their life, they're experiencing it at a suboptimal level. It's showing up in their work, in their relationships, in their conversations, in their experience of everything,
So
exercising, consuming entertainment.
there has to be a multi approach to it, where like there is a psychiatrist involved. Of course, there are medical other medical specialities involved. There is a clinical psychologist and a counselor involved to bring together the program. Is that right?
Absolutely. So, absolutely, Gurit. So, the first stage is the abstinence stage, which itself needs to be managed, and then comes the role of the counselors. And I think most rehabs today have a mixture of, people, psychologists who counsel, and also peer counselors. Peer counselors are people who have themselves been through the journey of addiction, and having come out of it, they share their experience. And if you've heard of 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, these are, well known throughout the world, that have a structured program for a person to not only quit the intake of the substance, but also to find meaning and purpose, and even, a spiritual anchor. So rehabs really need to then look at, when he is sober, when he is not consuming the alcohol, what's his life looking like? And so, what are the life issues that he needs to fix so that he doesn't go back to the same old behaviors? For instance, people might have problems with their, work colleagues or boss, or they might have problems with, with their spouse. Now, unless they are counseled and given a pathway to a regular process of, working on their life issues, their brain knows only one solution. Whenever there's a problem, it's going to seek alcohol. So, unless those issues are addressed, it's going to be very difficult to sustain the person's sobriety.
Okay. And in all of this, the family is also involved because the family would need a lot of support to be able to help the person come out of the addiction, even at an abstinence stage, I mean, for that matter.
Absolutely. The family's role is really important. Uh, at the abstinence stage, and I think you also asked a question about what should the family do. So if the family has seen, repeated episodes where the person is losing control or they are misbehaving, or it's called blackout. A blackout is when the person, let's say, is has had a certain behavior and the next morning has no memory of it. So if blackouts are happening, if the person is driving home and they don't know how they got home, when these things start happening, the family's first priority is safety. So they have to insist on, that, you need to get treated. Your safety comes first. At least you're not going to drive, you know. And so that is at the abstinence phase. And then saying you've got to seek treatment. Okay. Like, for example, I've heard of young people who don't yet have a job or a source of income. Sometimes even parents might have to, take away, the opportunities that the young person might have of buying and procuring and consuming the substance,
Mhm.
because their usage has gone beyond their own control. So they need somebody to help them to understand. And then once the person is admitted in a de-addiction facility or a rehabilitation facility, the family has to be actively involved in seeing what were the problems that we actually missed. Because in the problem phase, nobody noticed maybe that the person is getting withdrawn, or that there are frequent arguments, or that he stays confined and isolated in his room. And then these alcohol or whatever substance related issues have started surfacing. So they need to work with this person, they need to understand him, and they need to actually amongst themselves create and maintain an environment where he can stay sober.
Awesome. So I think that's a long run process, and my heart goes out to people who suffer and the families who suffer along with them.
That's right. That's
I
right.
think this is a very long drawn process to pull somebody out, and not doesn't just end with one instance of being in a rehab. We also
Yes, that's right.
continuous hand holding to ensure that these people do not slip back into uh, a similar episode again. Um, so therefore, I think it's very important to have support, ongoing support. So what kind of support and how can the support be provided to families as well as people who have come out of addictions to help them sustain a healthy lifestyle?
Great observation, Gurit. Sustained support is so important. First of all, for the person, because working on one's issues, the issues didn't come up in a day or a month. They are like pretty long in their creation. So sustained one-on-one work with a counselor, with a therapist is very important for the person. And what really helps also is group therapy. In a group where there are similar people going through similar issues, there is an openness, there is a trust that gets created, and certain issues that confront all people going through de-addiction, or all people who are even coming out of addiction and are in various stages of recovery, that really helps. The group becomes like a brotherhood, like a team, like a community that you can go to, and that community is always going to be there for support. You get firstly identification. You see that everybody here is like me. So there's nothing wrong, or there is no shaming, and I can be who I am. And here I have these people's support, And these are the ways, and of course, mediated and supported by a professional, saying uh, what are the best practices to follow when you're going through these struggles. And similarly for the family, to get support from one-on-one therapy, as well as from a support group that talks about what are the challenges. For example, in a family, they might get this whole walking on eggshells feeling, like, now can we just speak our minds, or do we all the time have to mollycoddle this person? There is an appropriate stage for letting go and saying no. Now he can take care of himself, and now we can let go. And because we've also got to empower him or her to build their independence. So these are all very subtle and very fine ways of balancing out care for a family and for the person who's suffering from addiction and has just come into the early stages of recovery.
Excellent. Thank you, Meena. I think it was a very enlightening session. Dear viewers, hope you enjoyed this. I think it's great to have awareness. It'll help us all reach out to those who need support in this manner. It's not about, uh, you know, hiding behind a stigma, but it is about
Absolutely.
putting out another, buddy around and help them to live a healthier lifestyle. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Keep watching the space for more episodes on different types of addictions. Thank you, Meena. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Gurit. Thank you all.